It's the Let's Go Eat and Drink Show with hosts Jimmy Santangelo and Bill Allred.
Let's go eat. But I can't tell what you're saying. Got you that food in your mouth.
I'm your announcer, Zach Caton, and we're coming to you live on tape from Casat in the heart of the 15th and 15th neighborhood. Casat, a wine and craft cocktail bar at 1508 South, 1500 East in the Great Salt Lake City. Today, we're talking cider with a man we might as well call Mr. Cider. Matt Ostrander is the chief cider curator and founder of Ibantik Craft Beverages. Matt has built a portfolio of more than 1,000 hard ciders sampled from 150 plus cider brands from across the US and Europe. And now, here are your hosts, Jimmy and Bill.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Headphones?
Yep,
They kind of help
headphones.
you,
Yeah.
get close to the mic and all of that and sort of know where your voice is.
Oh, you did. Sorry. You're okay. I'll, give me a little, well, not that one. Yeah, whatever's convenient.
How many different cideries are there in Utah, do you know?
In Utah, 5 right now,
5.
and then there's a few in planning that are in process.
Nice.
All right. Here we go. We're talking cider here on the Let's Go Eat and Drink Show. I'm Bill Allred, that's Jimmy Santangelo, and we have a guest, Matthew Ostrander, who is with Ibantik Craft Beverages, and craft beverages meaning cider specifically, is that right?
Yeah, I work almost exclusively in cider. I do represent one brewery. I discovered their beers, and they make incredibly unique beers, and I was like, I'm going to lock them down before anybody else in Utah discovers
Who's
them. Propolis Brewing.
Propolis.
They're out of the Olympic Peninsula in Washington.
Matthew is, he says here he's on a mission to be the leading educator and advocate of craft cider movement, which is big and grows bigger every day, every year. But cider used to be hugely popular in this country, didn't it, in the 1700s, 1800s?
Yeah, cider effectively built this country.
The whole Johnny Appleseed thing,
Absolutely.
which was the wrong seed from. You go on, because
No,
we
no.
talked about this before.
Johnny Appleseed was great. There's a lot to what his mission was, but back then everybody lived on a farm. Every farmer had apple trees. They grew their apples. They pressed their juice, made cider with it.
You mean apple juice?
Yeah.
No, there's no alcohol, right?
No. They fermented it because there's different schools of thought on whether or not this is true, but a lot of people say that they fermented that juice because fermented cider was safer to drink than a lot of the water that they found.
Yeah, and that's why if you watch Deadwood and they're drinking whiskey constantly, I think, how do they do that? It's just because there wasn't any potable water for them. They drank the whiskey.
Cider is what they drank. Some people like to think that fermenting the apple juice prolonged the life of that apple juice. They could keep it year-round that way. John Adams drank a tankard of cider with breakfast every day.
As a kid, you grow up hearing, the Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the sun underneath, the sun above, and the apple tree. The Johnny Appleseed cartoon and song, and Dennis Day sang that, by the way.
Wow.
For the cartoon, he was planting apple seeds all across the country just because people loved apples and they wanted to eat apples and make apple pies. There was no cider in that story.
No, not in that story. Johnny Appleseed, what he did was he traveled around and he'd plant orchards, and to get a land grant from the government, you needed to have 50 apple trees. So he knew where people were he just had a knack for knowing where people were going to go next. He'd go there, grow apple, get the apple tree started. Settlers would come, he'd sell them the pippins, just the little apple trees for a dime a piece or whatever. He owned 1,200 acres of land when he died.
Wow.
Wealthy dude.
And it was his mission to get people making cider.
His mission was just to make money. He
Just to make money.
He just knew that the apple trees were the way to do
I
it.
like this guy.
Like I said, everybody back then drank cider.
What drew you to cider?
Cider's the first alcohol I ever drank on a high school trip in England.
Wow. Oh, what an experience. Speaking of which, because I don't want anybody's palate to get dry, you did bring something. And we are sponsored by Beehive Cheese today. We've got our porcini mushroom encased cheese here that wraps around their promontory cheddar. So please help yourself as we go about.
Absolutely.
And Beehive Cheese is in a league of its own, you know. Utah's Beehive Cheese elevates humble cheddar into artisanal greatness, as Jimmy just described, with flavors that spark conversation, producing award-winning cheeses that brings friends and family together. Beehive Cheese earned first place at the 2022 American Cheese Society competition and were named cheese makers, the best makers of American cheese at the World Cheese Awards 2021, earning the Slow Food Snail of Approval late 2022. Beehive Cheese is also one of only 7 American cheese makers to be B Corp certified. If you want to know what B Corp certified is, look it up. Okay, we're talking with
telling you.
We're talking with Matthew Ostrander, Ibantik Craft Beverages. Ibantik being a name you chose.
It's it's a lake in the Uintas. I had to come up with a name for a business. We were backpacking. I was like, I'm going to come up with a name this weekend. Never came up with a name, and I was like, well, we camped at Ibantik Lake. I assume that's how it's said. Let's go with it.
Okay.
To that, cheers.
And how long ago was it that you started the cidery?
I started this business back in 2018. Things didn't really get going. I'll say until 2020. 2020 is when I first got some ciders in the liquor store. Of course, I got word of that on March 7th of 2020. And then March 14th, everything shut down.
Yeah.
So it took a little time to get there, but it happened.
Now, this cider we're drinking now, tell us about this.
So this cider is from Haken Family Cider in Aurora, Colorado. This particular cider is a Macintosh single varietal cider. So just Macintosh apples, that's all that's used here. Sparkling cider. Dan Haken, the cider maker, he comes from a wine background. All of his
this tastes. I would, if you put this down in front of me, didn't tell me what it is, I would think it was a wine variety of some sort.
And you're not wrong. Cider's just
cider wine.
Cider is a white wine made with apples instead of grapes.
Yeah,
that's it.
Okay.
It's made the exact same way as wine. Press the juice, either add yeast or let it ferment naturally. And cider is what apple juice wants to be.
It's very tasty. There was just there was a
nice tight bubble. Good crisp acidity, low alcohol,
perfect with the cheese. Perfect.
6.7% ABV, and the closure. This is more of an English or a French style, isn't it? With the cork or.
Yeah, it's most. I mean, almost any cider that you find that's made with method champenois is going to be sealed with cork and cage.
In the method of champagne. Yeah.
In the champagne method champenois originally developed for cider and adopted by the French to make sparkling wine.
So this is from a place outside of Utah. What are the can varieties here?
So the cans that I brought with me are the other. So I should say that the Haken is available in Utah liquor stores.
Okay.
It's $28 a bottle, so not a cheap cider, but as you guys can tell, this is a fine cider.
Yes, it's high end.
So the other 3 ciders, we have Original Sin Black Widow, which is a blackberry cider, Original Sin Dry Rosé. It gets its rosé color from red grape skins. So if you're really attuned to it, you might get a little bit of hint of grape. And then Grasshopper is a dry hopped lemongrass cider.
It's I really want to try all of them, but what's the middle one again? The blackberry?
This is the dry rosé.
Oh, yeah.
But the blackberry.
That looks so good.
The it's Original Sin Black Widow. It's right now. Last I checked, it's the 3rd best-selling cider in the state. So
wow, that's awesome.
I'm pretty happy about that.
What are the ABVs on that? There, I can't see it from 6.5.
6.5 on the rosé, 6 on the Black Widow, and then 6.5 on the Grasshopper.
And who's the producer?
Original Sin comes out of the Finger Lakes region of New York.
Nice.
And then Grasshopper is Colorado Cider Company out of Denver.
Now, people can buy these in the liquor store.
Yep.
But can they just go buy them somewhere else at a package store or sample them at a bar? Or
sadly, cider is regulated as a wine, and no wines in liquor stores or package stores or grocery stores, anything like that.
But restaurants can get them.
Restaurants can get them as long as they have a license to serve wine. Yep.
So talk about some of the other things that you do with Ibantik Craft Beverages.
So the primary thing that I'm doing is bringing other ciders into the state. I work with a warehouse locally so that almost everything I do is special order through the DABS. But because I warehouse things locally, I can fulfill those orders within a week or two instead of making somebody wait months and maybe not receiving the product.
Nice.
Right now, I have 200 different products in my warehouse. I've got about 500 different products in my portfolio. And my goal, like you said, my goal is to grow cider in the state here. Cider's grown everywhere else in the country. It has been growing since 2010. Craft cider has seen double-digit growth every quarter for the last, almost 10 years.
So you have like 500 in your portfolio. What do you explain to me how the business works? What do you do with that?
So I go out to bars and restaurants and try to talk them into adding more cider to their menu. I want to thank Casat while we're sitting here because they did order a bunch of my ciders. They brought in a French cider called Aval. They brought in their rosé. They brought in a Spanish cider called Good Clean Funk.
Bring on the funk.
It's a little funky. A little bit of barnyard. It's a sparkling Spanish cider, so it brings out those notes a little nicer. Most Spanish cider is going to be still. This one happens to be sparkling. But yeah, I go into bars and restaurants, try to convince them that cider needs to be more present on their menu.
Are you allowed to? Say you come into a place like this and you say, I want to talk to you about, so you make an appointment ahead of time. You don't cold call people.
Oh, it's a lot of cold call.
Really?
It's a lot of cold calling just to get, nothing else, just to get in contact with the right person. Sometimes they have time to talk about it. Most times they don't, but it's like any other sales.
Are you allowed to say, okay, you sit down with an owner of a bar or a restaurant, and are you allowed to say, now let's take a sample of this and see? You can't do it, can you?
Samples are illegal as far as wine goes.
That's terrible.
Beer can be served as samples.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Even heavy beer?
I don't know about heavy beer.
But beer is still, it's an alcoholic beverage that you're sampling somebody on 5%
even if
ABV
it's just
and
the
below.
5% beer.
I did not know that.
They're by law in the state, they're allowed to give that bar up to a case a year.
No.
Yeah.
That's worth opening up a tavern just for that.
I know, right? Sadly, it is illegal.
So how do you convince them?
You're
a silver-tongued devil, aren't you?
It's a lot of work. Thankfully, we have Scion Cider Bar in town.
Scion.
Scion, S-C-I-O-N. Scion is a piece of...
Is that the name of the shears?
That's the piece of wood that you cut off an apple tree to repropagate that tree.
Yeah.
Scion has...
Where are they located?
They're in the Central 9th area.
Okay.
What is that, about 150 West, 9th South?
Okay.
Right near Waterwich and Laziz and all that.
Oh, yeah. And so they have a large selection.
They've got about 230 ciders there.
By the glass?
They have 22 ciders on draft and then another 200 plus in cans and bottles.
It's an amazing wall, man. It's just all the taps run across.
You have mentioned this place to me before. Yeah.
So what I tried to do is I tried to talk people into meeting me there where I have it helps that,
Let me buy you a cider.
Let me buy you a drink.
You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. As far as I know, there's nothing as that.
Two people out for a beverage and conversation.
Just education. It's an education thing, educating people about cider, but thankfully Scion carries a lot of my products, so I can taste people on more things that way than even if I could serve samples. I can start with one cider, find out what they like or don't like, and then take it in a direction from there.
How have you seen your particular business grow since you've started doing this?
It's been a slow adoption, but it's been really positive. People have been embracing it. Like I said, Black Widow has really taken off, and people have absolutely embraced that. A lot of bars and restaurants. I'll stop into a new place and find out that they have that on their menu already. Mm-hmm. It's really quite an appealing product. I've never met anybody who tried that and didn't like it.
Well, speaking of that, Dawson, would you grab 3 more glasses for us?
Yeah, I'd like to just try
so
this.
This
It's
way
still
nobody's
cold.
got to finish what they got. And
And this is still
overconsume.
cold.
Yep.
Blackberries and freshly pressed New York apples. So it has to have. Does it have to have apples to be a cider?
Yes.
Okay.
be a
But you can add things to it.
You can add other things to it. You can add, this has blackberry juice added post-fermentation to bring that blackberry flavor out. You can also add the blackberries before and have a co-ferment and ferment that blackberry
Nice.
juice.
What's the brick level of apples when they go into ferment? Like wines, 23, 26. Do we know the sugar level on that?
Generous pour, Bill.
And
That's
because they
beautiful.
are relatively low alcohol.
Yeah, it's going to be more in the 13, 14, I want to say.
Okay.
15.
Isn't that pretty?
Cider naturally ferments out to right around 7 or 8% typically.
Are they playing around with a lot of the yeast, like fast-acting yeast, like a champagne yeast versus other yeast, or
Yeah.
more natural
A lot of
yeast,
champagne
whatever?
yeasts, a lot of white wine yeasts.
Cool.
Some people experiment with like Saison yeasts and
for
other
that
things
sour
like that.
kind of a...
I've got a Saison cider in the portfolio that is a blood orange cider that's really, really popular with people.
I'll keep that in mind.
Take
That's
a picture of that,
foreshadowing.
Dawson. Just take a picture of that glass. Or have you got? Oh, there we
with
go.
the can, with the can.
Yeah, and the can is a beautiful design.
Get in the
I
can.
can still frame anything that's recording.
The Black Widow Spider, feel that can. It's got it's got a matte finish.
Yeah,
on
I
it.
love that.
People love it.
That's cool.
And
And,
it-
this is pressed against some red wine skins
Nope,
for the coloring.
this one is with the blackberry juice. But that bright ruby red color of it, people love it.
Wow.
Almost looks aged with
Now-
that tawny color.
So I started to try and get the nose of it. You don't really do that with cider, do you?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah. Swirl it, bury your nose in that glass, and take a deep breath.
That's lighter than I had expected, but very flavorful.
Yeah.
Good acid. The carbonation is in the background, but helps. I just had a piece of cheese before it, and my palate's absolutely
Dawson, hand me a piece
cleansed.
of cheese, will you?
Very nice.
One of the nice things with cider is most, especially American ciders, are going to be high acid.
Yeah.
And that high acid, especially with cheeses, cuts through that dairy fat and really cleanses the palate nicely.
Blended grapes? Do they or grapes? Apples?
This is a blend of apples.
Yeah, just. And I love the cider apples because they're just like, unlike when you go to the produce store, the grocery store in the produce section, like everything's all like perfect and perfect colors. But cider apples are like one shoulder's up, there's a streak going across it.
Yep.
It's like this kind of like that's really small, or man, that's a large apple. Like,
A lot of them are tiny. They have rough skin.
rough skin.
They're not attractive looking apples. But
They're like the broken toys, the island of broken toys.
What is there? So what? I mean, are they? So like this the wine. This one in the wine bottle.
Yep.
It's a Macintosh apple.
Yep.
But they're special. I mean, they're just grody Macintosh apples. They're not the big beautiful ones.
No, the Macintosh are Macintosh. They're going to look that way.
Well, so what do you mean when you say cider apples?
Cider apples are going to be things like
They're not a culinary apple.
not a culinary apple, not something you're gonna find. Not an apple you'd take a bite of. A lot of cider apples, you take a bite of that. They're high in tannin. A lot of people call them spitters because you take a bite of it and you spit it right back out. They're not something you want to eat unless you're expecting it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I find it fun to
Like a
eat
crab
cider
apple when you
apples.
were a kid, whipping them at your friends, off the crab apple
I
tree.
kind of like those. I ate them when I was a kid.
So did I. They grow
And
nice
there's-
and robust.
There's crab apple ciders that are nice and tart. Crab apples are also used to bring tannins into other ciders.
It's I guess there can be I know there are hundreds of varieties of apples that people don't know about.
There's at least 10,000 named varietals of apples.
I
Fire exceeds grapes in one.
I realized that many years ago. My roommate in New York, his parents brought down some apples from upstate New York for us, and he said, "Oh, these are my favorite. They're Northern Spies." Mm-hmm. Northern Spies. You mean it? I just know those red apples,
Had I known that, I would have brought you a Northern Spy cider.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah. Northern Spies are used for single varietal ciders. They have.
I thought that was a great name for an apple.
It is. It's a phenomenal name. Apples have some fun names.
Pink Lady, Red Delicious, Green Apple.
Rhode Island Greening.
The New York Forget About It.
When I was growing up, it was Red Delicious.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine anybody eats those anymore. I still see them in the store, but
Some people do.
They're kind of
I don't
mealy
know
and-
why, but the apples you find in grocery stores they've been specifically bred that way to look pretty, to be of uniform shape and size, to be low acid, high sugar, really simple eating apples. And what I find is I'll put bone dry ciders, zero sugar ciders in front of people, and they'll sip it and they'll be like, this is really sweet. And I think what it is we grew up with the grocery store sweet apples. And so we equate that apple flavor to being
with
sweet.
sweetness.
yeah.
And it's really hard, especially when you grew up that way, to separate the two.
Of course, when I was for a long time, my favorite apple was Granny Smith, which is not that. And then when I was a kid, we would eat green apples off the tree all the time. I don't know what variety they were, but
They may not have been a known variety. If you plant an apple seed, nobody can tell you what kind of apple tree will grow, and it'll probably grow as a new varietal that's never grown before.
Do you like apples as much as you like cider? Do you just eat apples occasionally?
Occasionally I'll eat apples.
A glass at a time.
I prefer to drink my apples. Apple juice, apple cider vinegar.
Let's talk about what, for instance, we're drinking this Black Widow cider, and what's the alcohol content of this?
That's 6%.
6%. So a little bit more than beer, than the grocery store beer.
Right.
But the benefit is cider's a wine, so you can pour 6% cider on draft in Utah.
But what would you
You're welcome,
eat
by
with
the
this?
way, because I was on the board. I pushed wine and keg back in the day when we opened up Plum Alley.
Okay,
I was right in
nice.
front of the compliance and a monthly meeting and just saying, look, this is it. And then a week or three later, one of the beer distributors patted me on the back. He's like, thanks, buddy. I'm like, why did I interrupt beer? Because I thought I was taking his spot in one of the things. He's like, no, you allowed us to bring in cider on tap because it's qualified as a fruit and not a grain, if you will.
Sure.
So it exceeded that 5%, or at that time, 4.2%.
This Original Sin Black Widow cider from New York, and it says here on the can, fresh pressed New York apples, blackberries, champagne yeast, and sulfites to protect flavor. Produced in Lafayette, New York, under authority of the Original Sin Corporation. Apples being the Original Sin.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I remember my Bible stories. This is really good stuff. Really good.
Dawson, would you set us up with 3 more glasses? Maybe we can visit one of the others, because I know Bill wants to try the other one that...
Would you pair this with anything in particular, Jimmy?
Yeah, with the acidity that you have, bratwurst, sauerkraut, mustards, pickled vegetables, charcuterie, things of that nature, braised items, and also the backyard patio. It's very refreshing. I use cider as a motivator to finish cutting the lawn or doing yard work. Set it on the far post.
Maybe you could make the cider cut the lawn for you.
My lines get a little wiggly towards the end on some of these high proof. But what would you recommend, Matt, for the next one?
I would recommend we go with the grasshopper. I don't want to say it's better. It's a little more exciting. There's a little more variety of flavor in this one.
Yeah, this is kind of 2 notes. This I like it a lot. The New York, Black Widow. It's kind of 2 notes. It's apples and berries.
Yeah.
And this what is this one?
This one's dry hopped with lemongrass.
Lemongrass. Wow.
So hopped. Any hops in it or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And what? Just cider,
Cascade
apples.
Cascade hops,
Crystal
classic.
hops.
Ooh.
And just cider apples. Right?
Yep. This is, this one's going to be
Brilliant
kind of
color.
a blend of some cider-specific varieties, some...
Well, that's
what we'll-
perfumey.
what
That's
we'll
very
call,
floral.
Grocery store dessert apples. It's a blend of all kinds of different apples.
Yeah, that lemongrass, the perfume.
Wow. Again,
It's very floral.
lemongrass. I mean,
Beautiful.
that's you taste it.
I feel like I want to put a little bit of this, my finger in there, just a little bit.
Have this. I'd have this with Thai food.
Absolutely.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely. It pairs really well with that.
Yeah.
There's a cheesemonger, Steve Brown, out of Seattle. He wrote a book called Beer, Wine, Cider, and Cheese. And he went through and found ideal pairings of 25 beers, 25 wines, 25 ciders. And the big takeaway was, if you don't know what to pair, grab a cider. Cider paired the most easily with things.
Really?
Most adaptable.
It resulted in fewer "oh my god" moments than beer and wine, but it was definitely the most versatile and the easiest pairing to work with.
Does this have any RS in it? I'm getting a slight off dry, or is that just the ripeness of the blend
Nope,
of apples?
it's back sweetened with fresh
Okay.
apple juice.
Nice, yeah.
Yep.
So, how would you recommend that people? They're intrigued by what they're hearing here. They say, well, that sounds great. So the way they're describing the way these things taste, and where would you start? Get into cider.
First off, stop by Scion Cider Bar. Their staff is incredibly knowledgeable. They have ciders that will appeal to everyone. I like to say that there's no such thing as someone who doesn't like cider. There's just people who haven't tried the cider they like yet.
Honestly, I have not been a fan of ciders in the past. This is winning me over.
I'll change your mind on
This is
that.
winning me over.
Yeah.
I'll definitely find you some things that you like. Another way to do it is I'm teaching classes through the U's Lifelong Learning Center.
Oh yeah.
So those classes are taught at Scion Cider. You generally get to sample 4 different ciders. We have our next class comes up in, I want to say, June, and it'll be ciders of North America, so American and Canadian ciders. It's the classes are a good time. Everybody has fun. It's hard not to have fun in a class where you get to do a little drinking.
I did a lifelong learning class like that once with martinis. It was somewhere on Pierpont, and went and had a bunch of different martinis.
Nice. I like it.
It was great fun. Let's talk a little bit about your favorite beer or wine or spirit. I mean, it's got to be cider. Is there some? Do you drink other things?
I had a beer float last night. I like to say that I like beer. Beer hates me. So I do enjoy a beer here and there. Otherwise, craft cocktails. Gin is kind of my spirit.
Yeah, me too.
My spirit of choice.
Nice.
So I do drink cocktails a fair amount. I'm getting a lot more into brandy and going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Cider every day, though. Probably every day.
I could drink it every day.
An apple a day.
I'd be happy to drink it every day. I try to dial it
Try
back.
to moderate.
Moderate through the week. Maybe keep it to the weekends.
You're a better man than I am. It says here, how do you handle cheese? Well, you're from Wisconsin. What brought you to Utah?
Mountains, skiing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
I finished college, moved here in 2000, and haven't left yet.
Yeah, that's the story of so many people. I came here to ski and went, I'm not leaving here.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, you just look up from the city at any time, and every once in a while, I find myself driving around town, and I just giggle, laughing to myself that I get to live here.
Yeah. What I like this question. What food could you eat for eternity?
Probably pizza is probably. I think that might be the answer I gave.
Pizza, yeah.
Pizza is one of those things that you can change up the toppings. You can have New York style pizza. You can have Chicago deep dish. You can have just sort of a traditional pizza. There's a lot of variety to it. If it wasn't so unhealthy, I'd say fried cheese curds is something I would happily eat the rest of my life.
Oh yeah.
And I would I always say Chinese food of any American kind of Chinese food.
Okay, yeah.
I just like that's my favorite cuisine. I could eat that every day of the week.
Sure.
American Chinese food. And what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten and why?
I tried to think through this. You asked me this kind of as a pre-runner a little bit, and I really thought about it. And I don't consider much food weird. I had conger eel when
That's odd.
I went down to Chile.
Although it's very common to eat it there.
Common to eat it there. It was strange being an American and encountering it, but it was very good. Went to Spain and tried suckling pig, which, again, having a little piglet served on a plate to you is strange, but delicious.
But it was delicious.
I didn't think it, I mean...
So it's whole?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oy.
Yeah, it's
And
just kind of spread out on the plate.
And I would go, I've seen it, I've not eaten it, and but I could see, that's delicious, but I can't eat that little guy.
You know, when I travel, I try to find, what the local, I'll say delicacy is, or, what the local popular dish, and try it out.
Yeah.
It's obviously edible, so...
I've eaten bugs.
Everyone's doing
I think
it.
it's something you've eaten bugs. Did it
Oh,
say?
no, bugs is, nope, that's the one thing.
Oh, you would not eat it.
I will not eat bugs. There's something just, I don't even think I've never really tried it, but I have this imagined perception of what the texture might be, and that is...
Well, you fry them up with enough soy sauce, it's like eating popcorn, sort of.
Salty, crunchy.
Yeah.
Put it in some pudding, I'll probably... Sweet and salty.
All right.
Pudding.
Let's now, it's time, the time of the program where we turn to a little splash of news from Jimmy Santangelo. What have we, Jimmy?
In weird, wild, and wacky news, I came across 9 ciders featuring unusual flavors and unique fruits. So cider, at its most pure, as we've been learning, is apples and yeast. For a lot of cider makers, this is the zone where they want to play, dialing in wild myriad of flavors by adjusting the blends of apples or focusing on a single varietal. Kind of like what we have done here today with Matt's beautiful portfolio. So here are a couple of crazy ciders that are out there released for 2024. So at the 101 Cider House, they have something called Black Dog. It is filtered, activated, or actually in it is activated charcoal cider, producing the world's first black cider. It's a sour cider, apples, blood oranges, lavender, and charcoal derived from tropical coconuts that they break down.
I like the sound of it.
Yeah, kind of crazy, right?
I'm going to have to seek that out.
Accomplice Cider Works, I have a few here. Maple Bacon Cider. Cider aged for 2 years. So here's a few of their flavors. Accomplice Cider Works. I don't know. Have you heard of these guys at all? Maple Bacon Cider. Next one is a cider that they age for 2 years on gummy slices. A third, vanilla fig pear cider.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, and that's to name a few. Last one here, Bishop Cider Company, pecan pie. I do have one more. Newtopia cider. Viva Horchata combines white rice, almond, cinnamon, and milk for a creamy, dreamy sipper. So ciders are a large growing market. We've got a couple of great places, especially Scion. So that's your splash of news.
Oh, I have a little splash of news.
Oh,
it was
please.
just in the news today, and I didn't think to forward it to you. This is not cider, but it's apple juice. Martinelli's apple juice in the little bottles.
Yep.
All in stores all over the entire country.
Uh-oh.
They're recalling them all.
Oh, no.
Arsenic levels.
Wow.
Unhealthy arsenic levels
Forgot to rinse out the tanks.
in the Martinelli's cider, or not cider, apple juice.
I want to say arsenic is present in apple seeds.
And there is apparently an FDA accepted level of arsenic in apple juice. There is an
Must be in the
acceptable-
pips, the seeds.
It's in the seeds.
Yeah.
I think in apricot seeds too, they can be poisonous if you eat a bunch. They have arsenic or cyanide or something
Right.
like that. But but it's I think they're recalling every bit of Martinelli's.
That's massive.
Yeah.
Well, it was just Passover, so that was being celebrated for quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's for Passover, some people may have found it. Haken is actually certified kosher.
That's fantastic.
All of their ciders are certified kosher.
It's delicious stuff. Listen, if you want to get into cider, go to Scion. That's the place to go.
Definitely go.
And Ibantik Craft Beverages, Matthew Ostrander is a missionary, if you will, for cider.
We like to say cider apostle.
An apostle. Well, but
Apostate.
you should go around saying, how much do you know about cider, and would you like to know more?
It always comes to mind is I'd like to talk to you about my Lord and Savior, hard cider.
There you go.
That's always, I don't know why, but every time I walk into a new bar, that's the first thing I want to say, and I just never, I can't break it out.
Yeah, you can't do it.
I can't break that out.
I don't think you should do it either. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. Nice
Thank
to
you
meet
for
you.
having me. I
Thanks
appreciate
Cheers.
it.
Grab one of your full ones. Or
Thanks for the
you got a little-
samples.
Cheers.
These are delicious. These are all good. And go to that. If you want to sample some of these and many, many others, go to Scion. You can join us during a recording if you'd like to do that sometime. All you have to do is email us, the Let's Go Eat Show at gmail.com. Or if you want to tell Dawson ways to annoy me even more than he normally does. What was that? Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you, Dawson. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks for listening. Salud!
Cheers.
Absolute.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Let's Go Eat and Drink Show with Jimmy Santangelo. You can contact Jimmy at www.thewineacademyofutah.com. As for Bill Allred, put the message in a bottle and hurl the bottle into a Jordan Canal. The message will find him if fate deems it so. Comments, questions, or angry complaints to the management should be directed to the Let's Go Eat Show at gmail.com. The Let's Go Eat and Drink Show is produced by Dawson Dow. Our theme music was composed and recorded by Doug Wild. Recording facilities as needed are by the Visit Salt Lake Media Center at www.visitsaltlake.com. The show is a Double Plus production. I'm Zach Caton. I love cider. It doesn't make my tummy hurt as much as beer.